Hey YouTube, this will be week 5 in the Pagan YouTube Challenge, and this week's topic is, what does this time of year mean to you? And this one will tie in a little bit also with last week's, because I touched on that topic a smidge in that one too, trying to hold off because I knew this one was coming up. But basically I view this as a transitionary period with the very, very beginnings of spring starting to emerge. There are things definitely hinting at the coming of spring. We have Canada geese. I just saw a couple of flocks coming north, and there is activity down and around the farms where you can see barn doors open and a lot more people hanging out with the cows, which means one thing this time of year: calving season. Sometimes it happens a little earlier than others, but this year I haven't noticed any cows out in the fields yet, but I have noticed. We went by there one night and the barn doors were wide open, all the lights were on in the barn. And there's definitely been a lot more trucks and vehicles and doing all sorts of things in the pastures where the cattle are. So there is another little bit of springtime stuff. We still have snow, therefore the transitionary stuff. It's definitely still winter. It is cold. There's, lots of snow on the ground. We're still getting frost in the cars in the morning. I have to still warm up my car to take my daughter to her 0-hour classes and stuff. But there are the very, very beginnings of that springtime, which makes it a great transitionary period. I think that often people think of things as like one thing stops and there's immediately a new beginning, and that's just not the way things tend to work. Normally there's a lot of process to things before an actual change takes place. And I think that's what the Imbolc time here is that transition between the depths of winter and the comings of spring. We won't have much going on as far as total springtime until very minimum March. I mean, it's not unheard of for us here to get snow flurries even as late as June. There was, excuse me, one year where we ended up having a bit of a snowball fight in July because it was down in a canyon and a spot that was heavily shaded by trees. So this one little patch of snow hadn't melted because it hadn't seen any sun. It was just cold enough in that area to keep it from melting. It didn't pack well. It was really crummy, but still, in July, it was kind of nice to have a bit of fun with that. Haven't had any situations like that. We'll still sometimes get blizzards as late as, in March and stuff, and like we still continue to have this conversation when I'm talking about how it's, spring, and my grandparents will go, well, you've lived here for however many years and we've still gotten blizzards and we can get more snow in this time of year than any other. And while I find that to be true, I also think that you get a blizzard and it's kind of a one shot and then it melts like almost right away, maybe a couple of days, but it doesn't stick around like some of this does, where you have to plow it up into piles and then you have mountains of snow for months. I've been looking for other types of signs of the transitionary bits that do happen. But the big thing for this time of year too, it's my birthday on Friday, so that's it's always kind of an important part of year for me. It tends to taper off in the fall, I think, is when, not late summer, probably late summer, not really the fall, because like Samhain tends to pick things back up. It's kind of Lunasaw and Mabon tend to be my low period, I guess, and then very winter is another bit of a low period. It picks up and then it goes into a valley again. But that's got other issues. Christmas was always a big thing for my mom, whether it was, you know, before she became pagan, it was one of her favorite holidays, and that just kind of carried over. So that's just me missing her at that time of year. And it's, I think the seasonal kind of depression bit hits also. So, but this time of year, I like it. I'm happy with it. I have, last night, I set out my shawls. I have, grab them. Let's see my couch. This one that I got in a swap. Make sure that's the right side. Yeah. It was a Brigid. I don't know if it's brat or brat, but it's spelled B-R-A-T. Traditionally, I don't know if it's the goddess Brigid or supposedly Saint Brigid. There's a lot between the two. When I was a member on eCauldron, I was taking part in a kill, but it's spelled C-I-L-L. The C sound is a hard K, which was a flame-keeping shift for Brigid. And I kind of stopped going on to eCauldron that much, and they transferred from one server to another, I think, or updated the forums or something. So when they did that, I kind of just used it as a period to just kind of back away from the flame keeping stuff, which I kind of miss, but I wasn't doing anything else on eCauldron, so it just became something to keep track of when I wasn't participating in that community. But that one was from a swap that we did, and I laid this one out along with this. It's a shawl. It's got Celtic knotwork on it. I made this. I lay these both out in front of the fireplace to have Brigid bless them. I believe traditionally you're supposed to put them outside, like on a tree or a bush or something like that. But being out in the country in a spot that's rather windy, like 95% of the time, I don't want to lose my stuff. Because we have wildlife and we have winds, and so, but these, it's, the lore goes that each year you put them out, it gives them some healing energies and healing abilities in them. I believe it goes from Brigid's mantle, and I've done this, I would have to look up when I made this, but that's the one that started it. But I've laid them out since I've got them, and that's their purpose. This one is my Imbolc shawl. It goes with me to ritual. Even though I have another pattern for an Imbolc shawl, but as my friend said, it's not, there's nothing particular to make it Imbolc-ish. It just has some Celtic knotwork on that shawl. It's a knit one. This one's crochet. So maybe I'll use that to my advantage. Have one knit and one crochet. Eventually I'd like to have shawls for each Sabbath. But this is the first one. It's, yeah, I really like it. But it's supposed to be that it gets healing, the healing energies that it gets is like multiplied every year that you do it. So they're comfort shawls, or comfort square. Can come in handy. I love this pattern. I did not make that one. That was a swap. I forget what one I made, but they got one too. So that's this time of year. It's, I don't know, generally I start to get kind of a, part of it's New Year's, but part of the spring cleaning thing starts to come out. There are a couple of things that I've done where they try and say you don't need to spring clean. You know, Fly Lady and such. But I always find that around this time of year is when it starts to get that I want to do that. So to not do it is kind of fighting the natural rhythms that I get, because I start wanting to get rid of things and get things kind of in place. Doesn't actually seem to succeed much, at least not as much as I would like it to, but it does generally get a bit better. I think definitely more sunlight is a good thing. I hate to say it, because as much as I like to, as I joke, I don't tan, like, ever. I'm not a big fan of tanning. I prefer just, have a graveyard tan, as I call it, just maintain the paleness. But I am solar powered, and the longer days definitely help with that. So I think that about sums up what this time of year is to me. Can't really think of much else to say in the way of that. But it's Imbolc, and I like Imbolc. Actually, technically, well, it depends, because there's been, I think I've heard anywhere from like February 1st to the 5th for when Imbolc actually is. I know some people have done it in the like astrological whatever thing is whatever degrees. I am not an astrologist. Beyond the basic, like, oh, your birthday is this, well, you might be this, I think. They're one of these two. Yeah, but that's about it. Till next week. Bye.